Hello and welcome to Fair Play, the podcast from Pennington's Manchester Cooper, where we speak to sports stars and industry experts to discuss aspects of their sporting careers. I'm Lucas Grinstead, a member of the sports team who specialises in employment law here at PMC. I'm joined today by my co-host, Afifa Shabir, specialising in sports immigration and co-chair of our motorsports group.
Thanks, Lucas. In this season of the podcast, we are focusing on the future of sport, looking at topics such as AI in sport, diversity, and breaking barriers to make sport more accessible, injury prevention technology, and how people are consuming sport differently now. We will explore with our guests how they and their experiences are shaping a new era in the world of sport.
Our guests today are Jordan Albert and Fraser Singleton, former school friends turned business partners. Both Jordan and Fraser took very different routes out of secondary education. Jordan pursuing a career in Formula 4 and British GT racing, becoming a McLaren young driver, and more recently becoming a Motorsport UK accredited coach, and stunt double in the recent F1 movie. Whilst Fraser went to university to study business and marketing and go on to embark on a corporate career at a leading advertising agency and later a boutique outfit before starting his own creative advertising firm.
Through Jordan's years of experience in racing, he has learned along the way an uncomfortable truth that in motorsport, money often speaks louder than talent. This led the pair to join forces and embark on creating a tech startup, Forseti, a company and brand aiming to change the race one lap at a time. Their mission is to empower everyone to learn, develop, and access the world of motorsport, breaking down the barriers and proving that with the right support, talent can become a career.
In today's episode, we will explore the barriers to entry and accessibility, the ethos and purpose behind building Forseti, and how our guests think this could impact the future of motorsport. Thank you both so much for joining us today. It's honestly great to have you both with us.
Thank you. Well said. Great intro.
Yeah, that was brilliant. Tony Lawyers.
Summed it up perfectly.
That was really good.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Jordan, if you don't mind if we start with you, do you mind telling us a little bit about what first drew you to pursuing motorsport, and then where did your career start?
Yeah, so it actually started at the age of 4, and I didn't actually participate in the world of motorsport. It didn't actually become an ambition until later in life, but grew up next to Silverstone circuit in the village, next to the Formula 1 circuit. So, was exposed to it since then. So my parents would sometimes take me over to the track to watch F1 testing, things like that. But I wasn't too fussed initially. And I actually got into racing games as a kid. So played, wheel and pedals, Gran Turismo, F1, all those sorts of things. And it wasn't until years later, I actually ended up going on the track with this man next to me, Fraser Singleton. And we had our first ever experience in a go-kart. For my birthday. It was called Jordan's Albert Karting Challenge, wasn't it, Fraser? And this was actually the proudest.
That's what the trophy says.
Yeah, so Fraser's got a trophy of this day. It's his proudest achievement to date. And actually, he could. I think maybe Fraser's upset he wasn't on the list of credentials for his
no,
his
wasn't
career.
On the racing career.
It was a big, it was this big part of his career.
Yeah.
Anyway, we did a go-kart race, and I fell in love with it. And since then, haven't really looked back. But yeah, Fraser was in a slightly bigger kart that day, so he had a bit more power.
Which, if you look at it from the other perspective, Jordan got beaten, so he decided to make a career of it just to prove a point.
Yeah.
I think that was the.
Yeah. So I had fire in my belly from that day, and then progressed into it from there.
So you're all to thank or to blame, Fraser?
Well, yeah, it's either that. Well, thank his mum for doing the go-karting day in the first place and thinking that was a good idea. But yeah, I guess at the time you don't really know what you're starting. Also, we went back to Daytona where it started the other week, and it brings back a lot of memories of like a Lewis Hamilton flying in a helicopter, being there. It was like this when you're a kid going go-karting. It's like so cool.
Yeah.
Jordan pretty much can thank me for going into motorsport. Well, his mum can also for the stress she's probably had.
Shout out to my mum. But yeah, so that we were very like humble. Kids, like just having fun, but I didn't really know what I wanted to do in life in general. I mean, most 13-year-olds don't, but we bought a go-karting helmet, boots, gloves, that lot sort of thing, and then entered like a little championship there, progressed, and then we kind of took a leap. I thought, okay, could we take this a bit more seriously? Because it became my identity in a way. When you get into, everyone can relate to this. When you find a sort of passion, it kind of becomes your identity sort of thing. You want people to know you for that. Yeah. I definitely had that with racing. So, took a leap, did a scholarship, got through to the final, trained really hard, took it super seriously, and then progressed it. We took the leap and started to spend money into it. And that's when we realized, okay, this sport isn't quite so much of a sport.
Yeah.
And it was tough financially, really tough. So we did what we could, but just had to work twice as hard as compared to other competitors, just because typically when you get into racing, if you want to get to Formula One, you aspire to get to that level. You have to do go-karting for years, but we didn't do that. So I had to just work like crazy behind the scenes to meet the level of the others that were more experienced in a way. So
yeah. And just on that, what were the hardest practical barriers you faced at grassroots entry level motorsport?
I would say the professional level driver coaching was something that we invested heavily into. When people get into the sport, it's hard to find, like, you know how you do in tennis or football, you find like a club, right? A tennis club, football club, you buy a pair of boots. Racing didn't really have that. It's getting better now, but you have to try and find like a community where you can train with others. It was very expensive for us. What you spent at, for example, this training facility, we found what you spent per hour was the equivalent of what people spend on their monthly shopping, like food shopping. So it's like, if you want to get good, you have to invest a lot of money. And that's one part, that's just the training. It's also the participation of getting in a car. It's not like you buy a pair of football boots or a tennis racket, right? You have this entity of a car that has tyres need replacing, you have fuel, all these things, track entries. That was the hardest bit. And you've also got to have a team of employees to work on the car to support your journey. So that was the most difficult element, is the sheer cost of just to get on track. It was tough.
Could you see a divide between groups of racers based on money or ethnicity?
It's really a money problem. It's a money problem. Like, if you have the money, you can get on the track. It's as simple as that. So when we got into it, it was a case of, okay, how can we raise more funds elsewhere? Can we get sponsors? So yeah, typically you're playing in a game with people that have, there was a lot of old money, you know, people like that had wealth in their generations. So yeah, we did what we could. You know, we didn't have, we had maybe a couple 100,000 we raised to go into it, but that's peanuts in this world, absolute peanuts, especially at grassroots. But then we got into F4 and did what we could. The first year was really tough, where and Fraser always mentions this, and he was very much watching on the sidelines, is, let's say, a set of tyres, right? They could cost £500 to £1,000 per set. So some drivers would bang on a new set of tyres every single session 5 times a day, whereas we did maybe one set for a day. See what I mean? So that's how the difference can be between drivers and families.
And how do you think that wealth plays as you get higher up? So if you go from F4, F3, F2, is there a monetary value that you can put on it, or is it actually the more you have, the higher you could get? Like, does that wealth really play that much into it, do you think?
It does, yeah. So the higher you go, the more expensive it is. You have to combine that with, of course, incredible work ethic and talent. You know, you have to have all things to get to reach the top. But yeah, it doesn't. The problem is there's not a great progression. If you win a championship, there's no guarantee you're going to the next step, basically. So that's a problem. You have to go with a team, and they have to know you have the funds to get onto the track. Even if you've won, it's crazy, really. You know, you could win at F3, but not race the next year. So that's kind of how the sport really works, and why we're more focused on the world of sim racing.
From your and many other reports, it seems to be a money first, talent second industry. Is this what motivated you to start Forseti?
Absolutely, yeah. So years later, after my opportunities in racing, for actually years, to be honest, even through the ranks where we struggled to race ourselves, it was a case of, okay, there's something missing in this world that allows the right talent to progress through the industry. So years later, got together with Fraser, and we'd been mates since we were 9 years old, classmates, aren't we, Fraser? And obviously he had the ego of winning, beating me also. So he kind of knows racing a little bit, but kind of watched me on the sidelines for years. And I went to him, look, this sport I love is broken in so many ways. I want to do something about it. And Fraser knew straight away what we needed to create in terms of the brand. And it was the brand Forseti, and which has the mission to allow anyone to learn, develop, and access the world of motorsport we're in. So yeah, there a lot of the motivation for what we're doing now was from the kind of struggles that we went through in this sport.
Jordan mentioned that the sort of, you had the idea of what needed to be done with that. Like, he was worried about it. It was the sport that he felt was broken. What did you like sort of bring into it that you thought was that was missing, that needed to be done?
Yeah, I think it's interesting because you look at motorsport and you look at it from a perspective's point of view at the moment, and sorry, words are gone. What am I looking for? As a fan, you look at the sport and you probably get taken away by the money in Formula One. You see all of that going on and think, oh wow, this lovely world that I want to go live in and work in and do something in. You then have a friend that's going through the journey and trying to go through the ranks. And what you get a good view of is like how Jordan even mentions, putting on a set of tyres is a performance-based problem, being able to put on a new set of tyres. But if you can't afford it, you are then at detriment to that. So, it's not your talent that's the fault, it's the tyres. So there's lots of things in there that I always looked at. And I think for us, if you look at motorsport, it's actually quite a similar picture. If you go look at any business or motorsports team, there was no challenger. We always look at challenger brands, which essentially go out there and just point a finger at the rest of the industry and go, well, we're after you because we can see that this is all money orientated. So how about we flip that and try to do something different? And that's essentially where Forseti came from. So I don't know if you've got any ideas of what Forseti actually means. It sounds Italian, I guess.
Italian.
Yeah, sounds Italian.
Yeah.
It's actually not Italian, but which was kind of a perfect coincidence. So Forseti is actually the god, a Northic god, who is all about justice and fairness. And that's essentially where it came from. But when you hear the word Forseti amongst Gran Turismo or AF Corsa, etc., so on and so forth, it fits. So
Fits right in.
Yeah. So then you're also like, it's different, but fits. It's like the perfect piece. So for us, that's kind of how we got to it. And that was kind of the vision, is always like, if we were just going to make a straightforward brand and just be the same as everybody else, then you can't really do that when you're talking about money and being able to help as many people access. But obviously we can, because that's what we're trying to do. Obviously there are still things that cost money. We can't be here saying everything's for free. Simulators cost money. They're not cheap, but they are getting cheaper, which is fantastic. But equally, I think the realism is you're not spending as much going go-kart. Jordan's mum was very lucky to be able to afford to take us on a birthday party. I think it was probably a group of 10 of us on a package deal. Great time. But it will have cost money. Not everyone can have that opportunity to feel a go-kart. So how do we allow more people to do that? And sim racing is one of the answers at the moment. You see lots of schools, lots of initiatives coming around now where people can access simulators. So like that for us is like dream come true, that more people, because I don't know whether you guys have maybe been to F1 Arcade, etc. They're brilliant. But how do you know unless you have the steering wheel in your hand? Obviously, we can all say we're good with a road car. But does that translate? So that's kind of where it came from. So that's the vision. That's kind of taken what Jordan and I have always believed in, which is a little bit different to the rest of motorsport, I guess.
Yeah, so we're pretty much saying you don't need to do the route that I did and try and do go-karting, this dream. We're saying there's this incredible world of virtual racing, sim racing. And for those that don't know exactly what that is, it's say you play racing games as a youngster, or even into when you're an adult, you start with a little controller, right? Playing a racing game, maybe have the racing line on, try and follow that. And then we
Brake
think
assist.
he has them all on.
I knew he was going to say that.
Yeah, and then you start to progress and take it a little bit more seriously. Maybe want to beat your friends, and then enter some championships. So you buy a little wheel and pedals, and then you upgrade it even further. Maybe get a PC. So then you're in this realm of what's called sim racing, and it's this incredibly unique world where the skills that you use in the virtual world are near the same to what you do in the real world. So since I started racing, I've always used a simulator to prepare. So there's this incredible new industry and new users coming to the world, driving at home, where their talent just isn't being seen. So there's talent using simulators right now that have the capabilities to make Formula One. We're just not seeing them. So we're working, we're developing the technology to allow those people to be seen.
Because I always use this point, which is always quite interesting for us, is if you look at Formula One, it's the top athletes, but they will have had to have gone there with a network or some backing. You've either got the dream of Lewis Hamilton that met Ron Dennis and that great story, or you've got other ones which are more financially driven and backed. They're all brilliant drivers, but there are kids out there. We always use the term, if you're in some of the most deprived areas of the UK, there could be the best talent. But how would you know? We could go and research that. And that's something we've always thought about. We always have those crazy ideas of taking 10 simulators, putting them in a community run area and just saying, everyone come down, have a go. And anyone good, we'll just try and help them figure out a way of making it to a progression through in either esports, motorsport. So yeah, it's quite interesting when you start digging into that and you're like, oh, so hold on, some of the best races in the world may never have been found out.
But how possible is it to take those drivers from sims to real cars?
So great question. Now, this is something that we're looking at where it depends on the partners that we connect with. So with our technology, everyone sets up a driver profile similar to Strava, like Meets Racing. Set up your own driver profile, and then every driving activity is recorded on that profile. So we can get a real lens into everything, a huge amount of data that every single session they do, etc., wins, podiums. So the whole goal of this is to partner with the right people that want to actually get the best talent into Formula One, is to actually say, hey, look, this is the best of the best right here. It's proven through the data. So it's a bit like, the analytics look correct for that partner, the more the chance they're going to make it as a career. So
if we're looking at the more direct transaction from like moving from simulator to real, you can go and look at the Gran Turismo film that Darren Cox, the marketing director there, very famous story, took the Nissan team and essentially helped them create an academy for sim drivers on Gran Turismo, and then went and made Jan Mardenborough, who today is very successful and is a professional racing driver, but he started in his bedroom in Cardiff, parents not believing in it, and now is a professional race driver. In fact, raced at the Nürburgring with Max Verstappen 3-4 weeks ago and came third. So you look at that, it corresponds. Good on the sim, you can be good in real life. There's a lot of other factors to it. Something we look at a lot, which is super interesting, and I guess you can only experience if you go from virtual to real, is the scare factor. So like, you're braking a little bit later because in a sim it doesn't matter, you can crash. In real life it's a little bit of a different answer if you did get it wrong, and you see those correspond like quite it's quite interesting, especially on age of somebody as well. That's different. So yeah, there's a lot of, you can go and have a look at a lot of different examples where those people have been taken from SimWorld and they've never even touched a real steering wheel, even in a car. They could be younger than 17, haven't driven in the UK. Mm-hmm. They could end up being in a very fast car very quickly and performing. If you look at like Red Bull Sebastian Job, again, another prime example, went from simulator driving and then was put into a Formula One car and got within 1 second of an F1 driver within 2 days. I mean, that's just like
insane.
Yeah, crazy,
Yeah.
right? So you look at that and you think, well, it's possible. So anything here is possible. I think going back to what Jordan said, like, I don't know about you guys, there's only probably 1 or 2 other sports in the world where you can have a simulator quite easily accessible at home that are directly the same skill set you would use doing the real thing. You know, playing a football game is not the same as playing football, etc. So yeah, I think that's a massive help for motorsport in its own.
Yeah. So you guys think this is definitely the future, filling the Formula racing car speeds?
Yeah, you just have to look at the data. It's an industry that's growing 15% every year. You know, it's great. New users, Formula One's getting more popular, racing in general is getting more popular. So you have this whole new, you know, a group of people each year that are wanting to get into it. And something that I touched on earlier as well, it's the access to just train in the right way, right? So I talked about how, you know, my mum invested a lot of money for me to train at a proper facility. That doesn't exist. That's why we're bringing this to the industry, where someone can actually train like a professional driver on Forseti. So people will have pro level training activities to complete every week. So you train as a pro from the comfort of your own home in a way. So we believe it's going to be the new way for teams and sponsors to identify talent. And especially with AI coming, it's going to be a lot, you know, in terms of machine learning and trends, we'll get a real lens into what a driver can actually do.
Yeah, I think just on the back of that, my question was going to be on the future of motorsport. How do you think esports and simulators will shape talent acquisition and training in the next 20 years? And it's,
suppose, to see that. I mean, for example, I can talk from our point of view on what we're doing. So every single racing game has kind of different levels of data that it kind of brings to the user. So it's our job to take that data, and instead of just telling the person, okay, you're doing this, you're doing that, which is typically what happens, you know, how I used to train, you have to work it out yourself. The technology we're making is to actually guide the person on how to drive in the right way. So for example, not just going for your fastest lap, but actually making every single lap count. You know, a lot of the time when we play racing, we want to get the fastest lap, hot lap all the time. And Fraser probably does that. Just like try and like get a fastest lap to then share it to a friend or show. But actually, to win races, you have to be fast every lap, every single lap. So our training is going to create a new level of intensity behind people training up through also AI.
And I guess it's not even just from that, you know, you've got then talent, and this is why we look at those 3 key areas: learning, development, access. People can be really quick. I think I remember sitting down with one of Jordan's trainers and we were talking at length about all sorts of things. He said, well, Jordan's one of the quickest people I've met. Why is he not in Formula One? Well, it's down to the money, right? So us finding quick drivers is not the solution to everything, but it's also the fact of how do we build someone's online presence? How do we build them as a brand? How do we build them as a person? You've got all these kids, and I say kids as adults also who are doing it, who have built massive online presence. But actually, you know, if you look at boxing, they're not boxers, some of them. Jake Paul, for example, is not...
influencer.
He's an influencer. Yeah. He's become a boxer and now taken more money into boxing than they've ever had before. And I don't think anyone's denying, apart from it being a fairly dangerous sport, no one's denying that the amount of money and audience he brings to it is fantastic. Why can't that happen in motorsport? Why can't you have someone who is an influencer, becomes massively well known, and then takes his skills and becomes a motorsport person, or someone who is, you know, uniquely different in a way from normal generational, let's say from traditional racing drivers, especially in the UK, but has their own edge on it, but is also able to bring an audience. That means if you can bring an audience for a brand to a motorsport event that you're in, even if you're in Formula Ford, which is a very small championship, and you can have 10, 20, 30,000 people following you, like, brands want to be established and associated with you. And if you add to that you are uniquely different, you are trying something in a different way to other people, then, you know, you start thinking, well, you can get some real momentum here. Yes, you have to still be good, but actually sometimes you don't even need to win the races, because you are a talent. People watch it anyway, they tune in. So you're just going to get more funding because more people want to connect with that. Brands want to be established with you. So it becomes really interesting when you put all of that together and you're able to get somebody who can do all of those things. It takes a lot of hard work. Obviously, it's not, I think Jordan and I go back to school and I used to say, Jordan, post on social media more. I think there's so many events that Jordan did. I think, why have we not posted about that? That looks amazing. Mm-hmm. But as a racing driver, I guess you probably do get caught in this world of just thinking about, like, I need to be quick on track, forget about the rest. And as a footballer, you need to be really good on the football pitch. Being an influencer is not your full-time job. But with racing, I think there's more of in my opinion, a 50-50 split. You need to think about the commercial side in your brand, and you also need to be quick. Even if you're coming third or fourth, that's okay. But if you've got the biggest audience in that championship, by far, you're able to go to a brand or any business entity and say, look, hey, I get these amounts of followers. I can help your brand be seen by my audience, which are X. Follow, join the journey. I'll do some promotional stuff for you, etc. Any brand's going to look at that and go, well, that's actually an attractive proposition for me now. Whereas previously it used to be like, hey, law firm, you've got some money. I'm going on maybe a bit of a journey. It's going to be great. I may not make it, but join, come for some hospitality. Well, sometimes that's what interests some businesses. But other businesses, a lot more businesses want a return now. ROI is a big thing. So why aren't we looking at that in motorsport? And I think it can be done. If we're seeing it be done with so many influencers now. Well, I wouldn't say there's so many in motorsport, but there's so many across the board. I guess we could all name a few that could sit there and say, well, actually, yeah, they're there because they brought a massive media presence to it. They then also were able to have a skill set that people wanted them to do. And it becomes this tribe, this kind of community that everyone just follows. As soon as they say do something, everyone does it. And you do it. I find myself doing it, I'm sure. So there's often that, which you also have to think about. So yeah, being quick, I would say, it is 50%. And then you've got to have the commercial side, unless you've got very wealthy individuals or network backing you, which is only a tiny percent of people in the UK alone. Obviously, you then look at America, etc. It's also the same. But then if you have that nailed, you're like, you'll be able to go somewhere.
Yeah. People love that, just watching someone on YouTube, following them from day one.
Yeah.
And then just kind of progressing, watching their career progression and like, oh yeah, now they're doing this. What's happening next race? Then they talk about it. And it's just, it must be so exciting to just follow someone's journey.
Yeah.
Yeah. Something I really wish I did back when I started, because it's just YouTube wasn't as big either, like back then. Like it wasn't like a normal thing to become a YouTuber like when I started racing. So I think if I look back and think, okay, just going to the track, going in the garage, meeting the team, going through data, there's a lot of cool, like getting in the car, getting ready for qualifying to set like the best lap I'm going to try and set. That whole process, I think, is exciting if you if you show it in the right way. And obviously there's very smart people that work in Formula One that in the teams that show that journey really well and connect and create real communities. So it's just hard for a driver to have that creative process and also be fast. So as Fraser said, you do need to look at both. If you want to actually fund your racing to the top, you can't just be fast. You have to do it all.
You have to have a personality, really market yourself, have a following, have an audience. Get them to relate to you.
And if you go and look at Steve Super GT, he's a YouTuber who's got 1 million followers on YouTube. 1 million followers. And it's like any, brands, well, not any brand, but people will want to establish themselves with him. And he's made this audience, but it's taken him 15 years from start to where he is today. And now he's in real racing. Now, I don't think, I think Steve would say, he didn't start off with ambition of starting the YouTube channel to go racing, but that's where it's taken him. I think another one I always use an example of storytelling done really well, but a bit automotive is Matt Armstrong. You look at him, how he started doing up cars on his own garage, on his own parents' driveway, and it was some beaten up VW, and then all of a sudden now he's doing like Lamborghinis and Bugattis, and it's I only follow. I'm not into cars from a mechanical sense. I watch it every day. I think it's amazing. When he's talking about all the things in the detail, I'm like, oh, this is great, but I have no idea. I don't even know if my car breaks down, the AA or whoever. There are other providers, but it's like you bring them up, you don't even think about it. But and I'm not really that interested in like almost in a weird way, it sounds really bad what he's doing, but I'm really interested in the story because I'm so connected with it.
Yeah.
And like he goes to car shows, I'm like, I want to go. I need to see this car that I've watched for the last 3 months be built. Like, I can't just give up now. So I think that's the kind of area that we're often always talking to people about. But it is really difficult. I think the one thing as a non-sports person from a motorsport background, the one thing I've fail sometimes, and I think we probably all do, it fails to understand the amount of like effort and energy that goes into the thing that you actually have to be good at, and the rest of it is ignored. And if you could all pay a person to do the job for you and carry out the social media things, everyone would, because it would take some stress off of you. But unfortunately, the way that social media is now, and it's a good thing, means it has to be very personable, has to be coming from them, and it just needs to be the story. But with a bit of time, we've seen some coming into this off season that have been like fantastic, really good challenges they've set themselves to get sponsorship, etc. Which have been great. So I think that's where it's going. I think it's going to become harder for people who are just knocking on doors and just asking for money with no real return. I think now you really need to show the value you're adding to that business or that individual that can help them, help you get on the grid, either in real life or esports.
Yeah, that's so interesting. And I think another point that I wanted to touch on that you guys mentioned was AI and the sort of technology, and that's obviously the technology is how you get those stories out there. What do you think about sort of AI technology advancements, how that'll kind of impact the motorsport industry, and what are like Forseti doing with that? How do you think that you'll play a part in that, and what are the like implications of that AI now probably disrupting the industry as well as every other industry as well as yours?
Yeah,
it's really interesting. I was thinking about this the other day. I do wonder how much F1 teams are using it, especially for strategy, things like that. If everyone has the same tool, how are they using it? It's an interesting topic. I mean, I'm not sure how they're using it, but I mean, for us, it's a real case of how can we develop the driver further using AI. I think in terms of, from that side, it's reading trends, reading like the analytics of like reading trends of what the driver's doing, not doing, and then giving real guidance based on their activity. That's, and to give this as an example in terms of driving, say through a whole session, the driver's being recognized that they're braking just a little bit early at a certain corner compared to their best lap. It's then, okay, this is what you're doing. This is what you need to do to try and fix that. So that's the way we're going to use it in our system. But no, it's interesting. I'm really fascinated to see where it takes us. I mean, we talk about all the time how it's amazing how people are able to spin up, new websites now. But it's because the barrier to entry is so much lower now, it's even more important to have a strong brand as well. We talk about also the drivers having a strong brand. People connect to that. So
the AI question is interesting, particularly for us, also because with this like new world of development that you can do, it means you can bring the cost down and you can do things that would normally, unfortunately, have taken a human coaching at £100 an hour, where they're all accredited and they've done a lot of things to be able to charge that. But unfortunately, some people who don't have that income, that money to be able to spend, have not been able to access it. And I think that's something that Max Verstappen actually has talked about recently on a podcast, where he talks in depth about how kind of karting is great, but sim racing's good, really good, but you need the dedication and the coaching. But the coaching is also now becoming the bit that's really hard. So with AI, being able to bring that down from what was £100 to £10 for a month to get feedback, text, or even voiceover prompts whilst driving, like, it's changing the game for people to be able to access motorsport again. So even there, you start to dig down. You go, well, people are now getting an awful lot more, and access is becoming to everybody, even in motorsport. But then you can also go on about the hardware and how in Abu Dhabi now they've got the F Tech race, is it called? I believe.
So, yeah.
And that's like becoming a huge thing. But their developments in motorsport in general, will they take away? I don't think they ever want to have a world championship for Formula One drivers that isn't a human in the car. But where does that come for us? Does that mean that you could go out and have a robot set a lap time for you in real life instead of having a human do it, etc. Where does that go? So that it's all very, very interesting. Motorsport is obviously, I would always say there's that massive gap between what Formula One teams do and what the rest of the motorsport industry does, because there's just not as much funding behind it. But again, I think it'll be all fascinating. It's going to help users. The biggest thing is like users will get the most amount of help through it, I think.
Yeah, and I think if organizations, teams, drivers aren't using it, you're going to get left behind. You really do. It's going to, we're already seeing it's advancing so fast. So, yeah.
Yeah, and just before we wrap up, and this is to both of you, if you could give one piece of advice to wannabe drivers, parents, sponsors, what would that be?
So let's break it up into three. Yeah.
If it was Jordan's mum answering, I think it's going to be a very different answer.
Yeah. Don't do it. No. So to drivers, was it first? Yeah. So to drivers, I would say take every day and work on the goals that you've set, no matter what it is. Make progress constantly on the areas that need work. Dedicate to it. Either go for it or don't. I wouldn't say don't. You got to give it absolutely everything, whether it's making a career in the virtual world or virtual world or real life. Leave no stone unturned, and just always put your best self forward in everything you do. Take every opportunity and make every single corner count, because you'll always learn something that way. For the parents, I'd say tread carefully in this sport. The thing with parents, and I talk about this a lot, is you have this incredible emotional connection with your son or daughter. Emotions run high in this sport, and be really sure that they want to do it. I see it all the time. A lot of parents do force themselves down this route of racing, and the kids sometimes don't really want to do it. So to the parent, you really if you're going to invest more money into it, make sure that you're seeing clear signs that your son or daughter really does want to pursue this. If that makes sense. And then to a sponsor, I think Fraser touched on it really well. Invest in the people, in the drivers that are clear winners and can market themselves well. Depends on if you want to make a return or not, but you can see in someone's eyes if they're a winner or not, and in their behavior as well, if they're going to be supportive to that sponsor. But yeah, typically to make a return, to drivers that can market themselves well, I would say.
For me, so much drivers, I'd say look at the new ways that you can get into the sport. Don't just be single-minded on having to set in go-karting, and also simulator world, work really hard at that, but also remember there is a bigger world out there which you need to connect with and grow the audience of. You don't have to be the quickest, I would say. That's ironic coming from a non-racing driver, but I think the thing that we see these days, you don't almost have to be the best straight away, but it is the most personable, to be able to put yourself out there. For mums and dads, have a look at, simulator first, go-kart second. Let's have a look at whether they are quick enough to invest in to start with. But obviously it's emotion. So yes, if you want to take your son or daughter down to the go-karting track and they love it, continue. But yeah, tread carefully. I think we've all seen Jordan's mum's stresses at times, thinking, oh my goodness, what we're doing. But obviously if you have a great network around you, it should be fine. And then the last one was for sponsors, which is, sponsorship's interesting. It depends what you want out of it. For a sponsor, if you are a massive corporate brand and you want to network with the high net worth individuals, there may be the right drivers out there. Equally, if you're trying to access a massive pool of people that can see your brand and they consume it and that you can target them, then go find that big influencer who's in motorsport, if that's where it is. I think that would always be our advice. And get on Forseti. Obviously, that's the
yeah. Honestly, I think for all three groups there, you've got to get into sim racing more seriously. It's an industry that's clearly growing. It's going to get bigger and bigger, and there's going to be more eyes on it, more opportunity, more money. So, get it, be as good as possible in the sim racing world as a driver. Get the parents to be more educated on it, and also for sponsors to get involved with that space as well. It will be a big industry. It already is, and it's going to keep growing. So yeah.
Jordan, there was one point I'm glad you raised, because you mentioned daughters when you said sons and daughters, which I think is a really interesting thing. And just one final question, if you guys don't mind, was that we've seen this like cultural shift in the last 5 years, and that sort of diversity following that F1 Academy. That's what daughters made me sort of think of. And those kind of karting outreach initiatives, and obviously the sim racing you guys are talking about at length, which is so interesting. Just maybe a final take on that sort of diversity, the F1 Academy, what works and maybe what doesn't.
Yeah, so I think for racing, it's primarily been a male-dominated industry. It really has for many years. So it's good to see, people really try and help representation in, for female drivers. Ultimately, it's a mixed racing sport. So you can be a man or woman and race in the same championship. So because of that, some people in the race community have been divided sometimes whether there's needed to be a single female championship, but they do have a very strong mission to get more girls into sport, and they're seeing actually there's more girl karters getting into it, and also sim racing as a result. Now, I mean, for us, we typically, like, the lap time is what counts most. It doesn't matter where someone is from. Forseti doesn't judge you where you're from, what age you are, what gender, anything. So it's a sport. I think it's improving. The diversity is definitely improving in the industry, which is good to see. So hopefully it continues.
See, it's an interesting one because you have women who are pro, and then you have women who are against. It's kind of like they're not sure. It's like which way, Formula One, for example, if you take that, if you put a woman in there, I'm sure it's going to be really difficult because just the G-force and the sheer strength could be quite difficult. But we don't know, and sim racing is perfect really because it just levels the playing field for everything. That's what we always think. We also run tests even ourselves of is it about how expensive your simulator is? Are you going to be quicker? Well, actually, we've tried on a £500 sim and a £10,000 or £100,000 sim, and they've been the same. So it's leveled the playing field. You're just going to get, with the £100,000 sim, you're more immersed, you're more kind of wrapped around by a full screen, you're in a full chassis. It feels like the real thing. Obviously, for £500, you've got something off of Amazon that works and forward, back, and got some steering wheels, but it's still, you're using what you can to the best of ability. It's not like you can put on tyres every single 5 minutes if you'd like to. It doesn't cost you anything. That's where sim racing is really interesting. So yeah, from I think we've always talked about from a male and female debate in motorsport, that will continue on. People will talk. F1 Academy looks fantastic at the moment. But then will they start progressing the cars, for example? How will that develop? And we'll start to see it as time goes on. But I think there should be, you've got British touring car racing that has females and male in it.
Yeah, I think what's important is, and something that I hope they're managing well, is, for example, F1 Academy. It's this very, it's on the best motorsport package in the world on a Formula One race weekend, right? It's a lot of eyes, a lot of pressure. It's just making sure that those girls are supported, especially behind the scenes, because and I think that support really needs to start in go-karting and sim racing early, like grassroots, to then progress, so that there's not so much pressure. Because if you have something so incredibly sort of not glamorous, but this big prize of getting into that category, which is for any driver, that's a huge gig, like paid for racing. I think they bring some money, the drivers, but it's in front of like the best partners in the sport, best teams in the world. So there's a lot of big sponsors. It's just very important that the girls getting into it aren't just trying to aim to get to that series. Like it's got to be used as a progression. Yeah, it's like, where do they go after? There needs to be, I think, that support right at the start, which some people are doing, which is good.
No, I think that's a perfect message to end on. So honestly, we can't thank you both enough for your time, your shared experiences, speaking about Forseti. It was honestly brilliant. If you'd like to hear more about the movement Forseti are doing, you can find them on their social media channels at Forseti Race. And thank you to everyone for listening.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.